Well, something literally just from the Business Insider, and this is the EU reject May's single market for goods proposal. So, the European Union will reject any Brexit deal which allows the UK to remain in the single market for goods, a source close to the bloc's negotiating team has told the Business Insider. The UK government is reportedly considering a Brexit policy which would see Britain retain single market membership for goods in order to minimise a disruption to UK-EU trade and go some way to preserving an invisible Irish border. You cannot do this. The EU has been very, very clear since the very beginning. We are at the point where these are binary yes or no questions, and Theresa May and her government and all these other people basically don't seem to understand the EU. In fact, it's quite embarrassing that these elected politicians and people who are meant to be in charge of this and understand the EU don't understand this. There was another really good story, an article, I think I might have to go through it, about a negotiator who has come out and said, I am embarrassed by the fact that the government I am, negotiating on the behalf for knows nothing about the EU. This is, this isn't the EU being, uppity or anything about it. This is just being them stating their position from day one. And even before the Brexit referendum, they said this. So they are not being mean or anything like that. They are just, making sure the single market works. Basically. This is how they have maintained it, in its, this is why the single market is so good, because it has so many countries working together inside it, all agreeing on the stuff inside it. And now we want to go and leave and say we want to make different rules. Apparently, according to a lot of the hard Brexiteers, what these rules are, we don't know. But, I'm sure we'll find out. So a source close to Michael Barnier, the EU's chief Brexit negotiator, told the Business Insider that the European Commission would reject this proposal. We would say no to that. The UK is not going to get that, they said. We've always been clear, as I said, this is about protecting the integrity of the single market. As soon as you give the UK the single market for goods, the market begins to unravel. That is where we are. This is what they've said before, this is what I've said before in previous videos about the single market. This is why you cannot pick and choose. So, under the proposed model, the UK would remain fully aligned with the EU rules and regulations on goods. That approach would be welcomed by businesses who want to see tariff-free, frictionless trade continue. However, the UK would diverge from EU rules in other areas, including services. Critically, the arrangement would allow the UK to terminate its subscription to the EU's freedom of movement policy, which allows EU citizens to travel, work and live freely across the bloc. The rejection adds to an early chorus of warnings from the European counterparts that proposals would be rejected out of hand. The Spanish foreign minister said this week that the EU's most powerful member states, Germany, France and Spain, would veto an arrangement on the basis that it would amount to cherry picking. So Germany said no, France will say no, Spain will say no. Joseph Borrell said on Thursday. European leaders are in Brussels for the latest European Council summit. Although it is not top of the agenda, Brexit remains a key talking point, and while talks are at an impasse over the thorny issue of the Irish border, Theresa May's cabinet will convene next Friday in an attempt to reach a united proposal on Brexit before explaining its conclusions in the long-awaited white paper expected to be published the beginning of Monday, June the 9th. So the white paper has been billed as the most important and detailed literature to the government and the government will produce on Brexit. However, the 100-page draft document version currently sitting in Westminster fails to answer key questions, particularly what specific post-Brexit customs model the government wants to pursue, according to Channel 4. A source close to Barnier and the EU's negotiating team said the European side would be very pissed off if the white paper doesn't deliver details, adding, "We need this to be something we can actually use in negotiations." They also stressed the recent suggestions that May is considering an association agreement amounted to basically talking about nothing until the UK side clarifies what it wants. It would be likely to be included in the agreement. This approach is endorsed by the European Parliament, and it would help the UK avoid a complex array of bilateral agreements, likely those between the EU and Switzerland, by bringing all cooperation together into one agreement. However, a spokesperson for the People's Vote campaign told the Business Insider the government is stumbling from one unworkable Brexit proposal to the next, and all the time the clock continues to tick down and the cliff edge gets even closer. Despite the growing number of warnings from businesses, despite the concerns of citizens, the ideologues in the government insist they can have their cake and eat it. Rather than drive our country off the cliff edge, in pursuit of a fantasy, we need a people's vote on the final deal, so that people of this country can decide whether or not the deal on offer is good enough. The European Commission hopes to have the beginnings of a final deal on the table by the end of July, in order to give both sides nearly 2 months to negotiate prior to the October European Council summit. So that's literally where we are, and the government are doing an absolutely awful job. And again, I say to people who want Jacob Rees-Mogg to be Prime Minister, why hasn't he taken Theresa May out? He fully can. He has the power to do so. He won't, because he doesn't want to be responsible for the mess that is Brexit. Because after Brexit, he can come in, sweep up and say, "Oh, if only you'd done it my way." Well, hang on, ladies and gents. He can and has the power to take over, but he won't, because he knows the mess this is about to unleash. He then can make the claim once this is all over, that, "Oh, we need to be doing this because this will make the country better and this will make the country better." It won't. We will enter an absolute far-right, right-wing, laissez-faire capitalist system, and it will be an absolute shit show. So we will, And remember, people, the EU's been very clear since day one about this, so I can't make it any clearer for people. Britain is not the UK is not the powerhouse you claimed it was, Brexiteers, and you are basically failing on every single point, and you will not accept responsibility that this is your fault, and that the failings of Brexit will be your fault. We were perfectly fine when we were in the EU. There was nothing wrong with us being in the EU. Was it a perfect system? No, we could have improved it, and we could have lobbied for it, but no. You didn't want to. You decided to take your pram and throw your toys out and go home. Well, congratulations, you're going to fuck this country over for a good couple of decades. So, thanks guys.